Hi guys, you're very welcome back to this lesson where we're going to be talking about class inheritance. In a previous lesson we looked at Ruby classes, and in this lesson we're going to find out the hierarchy of a class by using the superclass method. So let's take a look at how we go about that. So as you can see, I'm in my Rails environment, my Rails console. So if you're not, go ahead and jump into that now. So we're going to start off by creating a string. So let's say s equals capital S for string, string, string.new. Let's pass it the argument Tony. So let's create a string with the argument Tony inside it. Tony, there we go. Now, how do we find out the class of what we're working with? Well, we're working with the variable s, which we just assigned Tony, the string Tony. So let's say s.class, not comma, s.class. Okay, as we suspected, or as we expected, it's a string. And as I just mentioned at the start of this lesson, we can find out the hierarchy of a class by using the superclass method. And how do we do that? Well, let's say if I just hit my up arrow, if you do the same, you'll get the last typed in command. So s.class.superclass. And it's an object, so a string is an object. And we can do it one more time. s.class.superclass.superclass. Hit enter. And an object is a basic object. So what does that mean? Well, if we just go back a little bit here, so we know that our variable s, the class of our variable s is a string, the class of string is an object, and the class of the object is a basic object. A basic object has no superclass. And how can we determine that? Well, let's just hit the up arrow again and let's just add superclass onto the end of our previous line. There we go, nil. So a basic object has no superclass. And this pattern is the same for every Ruby object. So every class in Ruby ultimately inherits from basic object, which, as we've said before, has no superclass. And in Ruby, when we say that everything is an object, this is what we mean. It all inherits from the one basic object. Let's take a look at another example, and the best way to explore this more is to create our own class. Let's create something simple like a name checker. So let's say class name check. Okay, inside this class let's define a method, def check name. We add the question mark at the end, as we know, for a boolean return. And we're going to pass this a string. So what do we want this string to be? Well, the same as before, let's make it Tony. So as we know, double equal signs means the same as. Return, hit end, enter end, and end one more time. So what's this class and this function going to do? Well, it's going to return true if the name entered matches the string. And how do we enter in a name? Well, let's first define, as we just did with string, a new instance of the name check class. And how do we do that? Just as we did before, we say n equals, enter in the class name, name check dot new. There we go. Nothing to return as we haven't given it any argument, but let's do that now. And how do we do that? We do that by calling the function checkName. So n.checkName question mark, so we want a boolean return. Let's check a name. So let's check Frank. It's false because we know that's not true. It's Tony. Hit the up arrow key, enter in Tony. True. So this example might seem over the top, but that's okay. It would be rare to create a new class just to create a method that takes a string as an argument. Since a word or a name is already a string, it is more natural to have our nameCheck class inherit from the string class itself. And how do we do that? Well, let's take another look. So let's create a new class. Let's call it namecheck1, because we already have namecheck used above. So let's call this namecheck1, left angle bracket, string with a capital S. This means we are inheriting from the string class. Hit enter, def, check name, question mark. Now self, Tony, end, and end again. Okay, so our check name method or our check name function has been defined. Let's create a new instance of our class namecheck1, and we do this, we're going to call, instead of using n or S, which we used previously. Let's just use A. So A equals namecheck, don't forget the 1 at the end, namecheck1.new. Now let's pass it an argument, Tony. Perfect, Tony is returned. A.checkName, question mark. What do you think is going to return here? True, because Tony is within our method that we just defined a few lines above. Now, because our namecheck1 class is inheriting from the string, which we did on this line just here, we can use methods that would work with ordinary strings, such as a.length. Excellent. So once again here on this line of code is Ruby syntax for inheritance, which ensures that in addition to the new checkName method that we created, it also has access to all the same methods as strings, which is why we can call n.length. Also, since the namecheck class inherits from string, we can use the console to see the class hierarchy. So let's take a look at that. So let's say a.class namecheck1. Perfect. So our variable, the class of our variable is namecheck1. Excellent. We created a new class up here, and that new class is used by the variable a. Not too bad so far. Let's take another look. So hit the up arrow key, a.class.superclass. It's a string. As we know, it inherits from string. Great. Let's try it one more time. It's an object. And what happens if we do it one more time? It's a basic object, as we discussed at the beginning of this lesson. So what we've just done is look at the inheritance hierarchy for the non-built-in class namecheck1. Okay guys, I hope all that makes sense. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next lesson where we're going to be looking at how to modify built-in classes. See you then.